You're all right, Virgil.
Alright, more shawls. I want to go hunt down some old folks.
All right, people. Let's get to that bridge.
You mean that blurry line on the horizon? Let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All right. Military's still here. Baby, that is how that's done. Come on, let's head through the park. Where's Cedar? Good question. Four more than nine. We're having a shot. Restricted area. Get ready to run. Go! Keep moving! Move! Yeah, show you right.
As with our efforts to replace the first aid kit, replacing the pain pills item was a challenge.
Left 4 Dead 1 had a good, fictionally justifiable cast of guns, the M16 being a standard police and military weapon, for example. In Left 4 Dead 2, we had the opportunity to do something a bit less generic and use some more interesting guns.
Because Left 4 Dead 1 took place entirely during the night, it was fairly straightforward to light the path we wanted players to take. For campaigns that take place during the day, we had to find other tools to help the player along. The most valuable tools were visible landmarks, such as gas station signs, overpasses, the bridge, and smoke from wrecked aircraft.
As we added more special infected characters to Left 4 Dead 2, we faced a challenge in designing unique sounds for them the players could easily recognize and distinguish from the other specials and from the common infected.
The Source Engine's animation system is a powerful tool that lets us create animations procedurally instead of authoring each of them individually by hand. There are various reasons for doing this, which become clear when we consider the challenge of animating the jockey riding a survivor. From the start of the jockey's design, we wanted the survivor to be able to fight back to some degree. With that in mind, we decided it would be vital for the survivor to know the jockey's intent, regardless of how successful he was at acting on it. So even though you may be stuck against the table going nowhere with a jockey on your back, we want you to understand that the jockey is really trying to get you out that door at the end of the room, and around the corner where your friends can't help you. To accomplish this, we implemented a system of animation layers for the survivor that would work in conjunction with
We destroy zombies! That is what we do! This freeway's gotta hook up with the bridge.
Up until Left 4 Dead 2, all playtests conducted at Valve required an observer from the team to sit behind each tester and observe them directly. For Left 4 Dead 2, we developed a system where a single observer could view each playtester's screen in parallel with webcams that captured the playtester's reaction. We recorded every playtest so we could go back and reference specific moments at will. This meant that most of the team could continue working during the playtest, which often takes several hours out of every day.
Heads up!
As with the Smoker, the Spitter has a gameplay style which necessitates making her more visible to the player at a distance. Since the Spitter's strategy is to hit and run, striking at the survivors from far away, we needed distinct visual markers to differentiate her in the dark spaces during the chaos of combat. To this end, we concocted a glowing drool that would illuminate her and create a sharp contrast to the other game colors, while playing off the green death motif associated with the infection. The trail she leaves, which is visually similar to a projectile attack, allows players a brief chance to track her movements when she retreats to hide.
After we shipped support for custom add-on campaigns via the VPK format, we realized that while many people can install and play these campaigns, it was difficult.
The laser sight weapon upgrade came from an experiment during the development of the first Left 4 Dead, though we didn't end up shipping them at the time. While developing Left 4 Dead 2, when we were talking about interesting items that players could scavenge out of the levels, we remembered the visual impact of those red laser beams. The original intention of the item was to increase the accuracy of the guns, but the more valuable benefit was accidental. You could now see where the other members of your team were aiming. We also liked the choices that confronted players when they had to decide whether or not to swap out their upgraded weapon for one of a different style.
Everybody in the sewer. bombs everywhere, people.
After Left 4 Dead 1 shipped, we wanted to experiment with an optional crescendo event. The impound mod is the final version of that experiment. It's difficult for a survivor team to navigate through without setting off a single car alarm, and if they manage it, the experience of carefully sneaking through an obstacle course full of traps is itself quite rewarding.
Up that ladder. We did it, people. We on the bridge.
Since managing health with a first aid kit is such a large part of the player's decision process, finding a new item for the backpack slot proved to be difficult.
Me some bitches.
We wanted the new item to be as valuable as a health kit in certain situations and have a big benefit for the team, as opposed to being merely another offensive weapon. It needed to have a user.
Something that was always sad for us to watch in Left 4 Dead was that players would always choose an optimized path through a level once they played the map a couple times. That meant the hard work we put into other areas of the map would never be seen. So one thing we wanted to add in Left 4 Dead 2 was the ability for the AI director to change the path of the survivors through a level, so they have to take a different...
When we began development on Left 4 Dead 2, we decided early on to cast a totally new band of survivors in the lead roles. This involved extensive concept sketches and a period of evaluating actors with the help of several talent agencies. Once the actors were cast, we brought them in for a full costume photo shoot and conducted 3D scanning of their facial features. This reference was then used by our artists to create high-detail digital sculpts, which formed the basis of our in-game characters. The goal from the beginning was to provide the player with a lineup of believable survivors, real people juxtaposed against extraordinary situations.
We destroy zombies! That is what we do!
The writers originally devised a biography for a convict character. There was an idea that here in the lawless world of the infected, this escaped convict, sick of wearing prison clothes, had taken the effort to loot a very expensive white suit from an abandoned clothing store. He might as well survive the apocalypse in style. This concept gradually evolved into the Riverboat Gambler.
This balcony was designed as a fish in a barrel moment, where the survivors can come out to the street and pick off a bunch of the wandering infected without being in much danger. We felt it was a good introduction to our interpretation of Bourbon Street, giving a nice atmospheric vista without too much immediate threat.
We deliberately sought to design iconic French Quarter locales that would be fun to fight in. This jazz club gave us a nice large interior space that offered a break from exterior streets and alleys.
One of the challenges with melee weapons is getting them to feel right and look decent. In order to get the fire axe to look right when playing the game, it had to cross the screen within 3 or 4 frames. To enhance visibility, we swapped between the normal axe and a smeared version, along with a particle effect to cheat a motion blur. The smeared axe hits at the correct time, but allows your eyes to follow the action.
Because sound is such a crucial gameplay element in Left 4 Dead, the designers needed temporary sounds to test out ideas for the new boss infected. Sometimes we were able to pull temp sounds from unused performances in our library, but in Left 4 Dead 2, the sound designers did their own temp performances. The goal with these is to be just functional enough to test them.
Left 4 Dead 2's level designers started out by experimenting with variants on the proven designs of Left 4 Dead 1. For example, this is the only traditional crescendo event in the Parish campaign. In Left 4 Dead 1, every crescendo event was essentially a button press where players held out in one spot until the infected stopped coming. While we added the onslaught and optional crescendo variations, we felt that the old school
Valve has a history of supporting community developers and helping to promote their creations. And with the Left 4 Dead games, we've taken the opportunity to make the great content our community produces even more accessible with our new add-on system. Content creators can package new campaigns into a single add-on file, which end users can easily install. Users can now view titles, descriptions, authors, and other information for all of their installed add-ons via an in-game interface. Add-ons work seamlessly with the matchmaking system so that users can quickly get into games featuring community campaigns they've already...
After we shipped Left 4 Dead, we heard a lot of positive responses about the infected that were unique to their locales. There were patients in the hospital, cops in the streets, and TSA agents in the airport. We wanted to add further variety to Left 4 Dead 2's campaigns, so we decided... In Left 4 Dead, our designers could place alarmed cars in levels. When shot, these cars would flash and make noise, attracting the infected.
We destroy zombies! That is what we do!
This finale felt risky at first.
Game assets are more likely to make it through production if they serve the game on multiple levels. Take this bridge ramp for example. Movement-wise, it acts as the starting gate. Audio-wise, it acts as the starting gun. Visually, it blocks and breaks up a potentially uninteresting view. Fictionally, the seizing malfunction and resulting loud bang make it clear that the players have attracted every infected on the bridge.
One of our most important tools for creating and evaluating environments was what we called the Left 4 Dictionary. This collectively developed set of terms, ideas, and gameplay grammar describes spaces via their physical properties, functions to gameplay, and the relative advantage or disadvantage to the survivor or infected sides. This provided the team with...
Most of the region where Left 4 Dead 2 is set is quite flat. There are few hills or changes in elevation, but maps without any elevation change can be monotonous both visually and in terms of gameplay. That's why this double-decker bridge was not only a visually strong set piece, it added the much-needed element of verticality to the campaign.
Woo! Ha ha! That's how we do it!
Stormy weather effects give the director yet another way to influence gameplay by altering the player's sensory capacity. One goal of the weather effects is to draw the team together and put them in a defensive stance, such as taking refuge within a building. In this respect, weather is much like a crescendo event, but because it's entirely under director control...
The grenade launcher came about purely out of our desire to see more explosions and more zombies killed by explosions. We found that something interesting happened when we gave one of the 4 survivors a grenade launcher.
They became more vulnerable to close. The new campaigns in Left 4 Dead 2 featured a great deal more water than in the original game. Therefore, it was a priority to improve our water rendering. One of the most important new pieces of technology enabled artists to paint water flow uniquely on each water surface. This allows us to make the water look like it's flowing in any direction we desire without any constraints. This not only looks better, it aids gameplay by subtly guiding the player where they need to go. As an example, in the swamp levels, the water usually appears to flow towards the end of the level. And water is far more convincing when you can actually see it flow around obstacles like trees and rocks.
Alright, thanks.
Additionally, players were connecting to our multiplayer games by selecting a server with available player slots from a very big list. Players might select a server by an appealing server name or network latency. This worked well for 24 or 32 player games, where many players could have a great experience even without tight cooperation with their teammates. But for Left 4 Dead franchise, a different approach was required. We wanted to build a group.
In Left 4 Dead 2, the Source Engine received many new features and optimizations that enable it to handle denser, higher resolution environments.
The Source Engine uses two different methods for modeling world environments, a volume-based system for general forms and a polygon-based system for details. Each has its own advantages and disadvantages, and they must be integrated together to create a game map. One of the challenges associated with this setup is that the two systems have mostly separate authoring pipelines, and it's easy to make a change in one and break a tightly integrated set. As part of making the modular kit of parts that was used to create this bridge, we developed a new hybrid workflow that allows content authors to create and iteratively edit both types of world geometry